Hello there.
Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Eli.
I'm Jacob.
And we have such a fun episode. We are sitting down with Laura and Alyce from Force Toast, a Star Wars happy hour, to discuss a very interesting arc of Star Wars, The Clone Wars. And that is the Rush Clovis arc in Season 6. That is an old friend, The Rise of Clovis, and Crisis at the Heart. So first of all, Laura and Alyce, how are you doing? Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Happy Saturday.
Absolutely. So before we get into all of that, I do want to get a little bit of your background in coming into Star Wars. So either order, it doesn't matter. How did you both get into Star Wars, and how did Force Toast and Star Wars Happy Hour happen?
Go ahead, Alyce. You can start.
All right. So I have always been into, the nerd stuff and Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, all the good things. And when I was little, I remember watching, we used to steal the Disney Channel with one of those little switch boxes because it used to cost money separate. And the Ewok movies came on all the time, and I loved them because I was a little girl. The main character's a little girl. I'm like, this is so cool. I love it. And those were some of my favorites. And then one day, a few years later, or at some point, I was just flipping through channels at my grandmother's house, and I saw the Ewoks, and I was like, yeah, Ewoks, woo! And of course, it was Return of the Jedi. So that made me really excited. And I've always enjoyed Star Wars. Like I didn't do a high school graduation trip, but my friends and I did the midnight showing of Revenge of the Sith. And then a few years ago, I was just having a really stressful time. And I was like, okay, I just need something relaxing to have on. And I just kept doing Star Wars, everything. I had the movies on repeat. I started reading the books, started listening to podcasts, and all that good stuff.
So my whole journey into Star Wars started a little bit later than Alyce's. I kind of came into it as an adult, which is weird. But it's fine. And in terms of like the movies and stuff that were coming out around that time, it was like the Force Awakens trailer that kind of got me like really started into it. Like that's what sort of motivated me to be like, oh yeah, this is like a cultural phenomenon that I should probably know about. So I sat and watched all the movies start to finish in release order, and started watching the Clone Wars, and then watched Rebels, and Rebels was kind of that thing that really, really solidified my place in the Star Wars fandom, because, it was that thing that was like coming out new every week. And so I got to like experience a new Star Wars thing with other people at the same time, which I think was like, it was huge in terms of like really getting me into like the fandom and trying to find other people that are like watching this show. And so I'm like spending all this time on Twitter and Reddit and finding all these people who have this common interest. And so that kind of really drew me in. I went to Star Wars Celebration in 2017. That was like my first con anywhere. And that's where like some people were playing Star Wars trivia and just waiting in line while we were staying up all night waiting in these long lines before they started doing the lotteries at conventions. And that was kind of my first thing of like, oh, like I've retained a lot of this information. And when I came back, I started going to Star Wars pub trivias in Chicago. And that is how Alyce and I met. We were both sort of hitting the trivia circuit, and probably like, I don't know, was that 2017? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, when The Last Jedi was coming out, and I vividly remember I'd be searching Facebook for trivia events, and I'd play by myself because I don't have any friends. And I remember on one of the event posting, there's someone who posted like, is there going to be legends in this trivia? And it was Laura. I was like, who is that girl with the bangs? Like, she's my arch nemesis. And at one of the trivias, I saw her there, and I was like, oh, that's that girl. But yeah, we both went around just like crushing it. And then the very last trivia of the season, the trivia master, we had both met on separate outings, and he was like, hey, you guys have to meet, da 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 da. And we just talked and exchanged podcasts we listened to, and like hung out all night at the bar drinking beer.
It was great. It was a wild ride.
It's fun to see, I don't know, I know when Jacob heard the Rebels thing with you, Laura, I know he just lit up because that's this is what I keep doing. I keep inviting guests who are just in love with Rebels. Not that I'm not. And Jacob's like, oh, you brought another one.
I also consider myself kind of Rebels is also. I was a Star Wars fan before that, but FYI, like Rebels, I think same as you, Laura. I watched that as it was coming out. That was the first thing I watched that was coming out. I think that's even if you are involved in Star Wars before, watching something as it comes out, I feel like is a special experience.
Oh, it's
and that
huge.
Just, for me, that just like, oh my gosh, even I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. Oh my gosh, like it felt like it made it so much bigger, and I realized that wait, I'm a fan. Like this is big. Like I'm part of something bigger than myself.
Yeah. And it's really great now that Disney Plus like has all the episodes streaming, because I feel like so many people have like gotten into that show since Disney Plus became a thing. Because it was really hard to access before. It was like whatever, not Disney Plus, I don't remember what it was called now, but whatever Disney app there was, like never had more than like, I don't know, a couple episodes on it. Like it was just hard to find. So now that it's easy access, I feel like there are new Rebels fans popping up all the time, and I just love seeing that.
Yeah, I remember when it was coming out, I watched it on Amazon Prime Video. You had to like buy every season, but then they kept splitting the seasons in half. So you had to buy the first half, and then you thought you were good, and then you had to buy the second half of the season when it came back after the winter break. And it's really good to see now that it's just all in one place, and you can get it there. It's great to see, especially after the Clone Wars went off of Netflix. Those were the dark times, in my opinion. And there was no Disney Plus and no Clone Wars on Netflix. That was the worst, in my opinion, for Star Wars TV.
Frankly, it was still so weird to me that they released the Clone Wars onto Netflix in the first place, and that we're doing the Netflix season now. Like, I specifically remember going to Netflix and being like, "Oh, these are the lost missions. These are the special ones." When really they were just like, "Yeah, here's just 16 more episodes." Just slap them all right in front of you. But moving on from that, let's get into our first episode. If we're all good, I think we're all good.
That's good.
First episode is An Old Friend. Our fortune cookie is: to love is to trust. To trust is to believe. What did you all think about that? Anybody?
I feel like that fortune cookie would have applied better to the last episode in this arc, episode 7 of season 6. That just it seems more fitting to that one.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one that could be applied to the whole shebang, in my opinion. But it's interesting to me, Anakin, obviously, he's so worried about protecting Padmé in this arc, and not wanting, in a larger sense, not wanting the people that he loves to leave his side, to get hurt, especially after Ahsoka leaves, that he ends up not trusting her to do the right thing and not believing in her. And obviously that ends up severely straining their relationship. So I think that this can kind of be applied to the whole arc, to all 3 episodes. But yeah, I think if I had to pick one to slap it on, I think the last episode might have been a little bit of a better place, in my opinion.
It's one of those things with the later arcs of seasons 6 and 7, where Jacob's talked a lot about the arcs blending together, and that's what they do. It's like, it's hard to remember where one episode starts in this arc and the other one and other ones begin, and where they end. And I feel like all 3 of these could have applied to the entire arc. So it's weird kind of splitting them up into pieces and saying, oh yeah, here's the fortune cookie for this one, and here's the fortune cookie for that one. Jumping into the episode, I'd like to start with this one. I love how the opening narration basically says to us that Padmé is the only one getting anything done in the Senate. Jacob and I have talked about this on the show in the past, but they're like missions and meetings where Padmé totally should not have been, but she was there because she's the only one who cares, apparently. And it's so strange to me.
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Alice. Sorry.
They also expect a lot of their senators. I feel like they're on James Bond missions in order to be effective. where that seems like a bit much for the average Joe, right?
I mean, Padme kind of seems like a super senator in the Clone Wars. She's super influential. Everyone's always talking about what an amazing speaker she is, what an amazing negotiator she is. Everyone always needs her for something, you know?
She was like the Star Wars equivalent of an influencer. Like back
Yeah,
then.
she's so in demand.
So in demand. Yeah, we've also talked a lot on the show in the past about, and I feel like this is true, how Padme is often said to be this great legislator and negotiator, and how she never backs any of that up. How she's like, hey, I have this really cool idea, and everybody's like, you're too much of an idealist. This will never happen. And then it doesn't, and people are like, but you're so great, though.
But she looks great doing it. No, she is such a super idealist. And I mean, it's kind of sad because she does mention, I think, at some point in this arc, where she's just like, I've exposed corruption during this war before, and like nobody gave a shit. So it's just really kind of, I feel bad for her, I feel for it. And the Clone Wars is one of those things that really sort of like redeemed Padme for me a little bit. I've never really loved the character. Even today, I still kind of don't. But you do feel for her a lot in these types of situations.
Yeah, no, the Clone Wars really does do a great job, I think, of showing how a lot of these characters, Ahsoka recently, that's what comes to mind, in her final arc. Padme, as you said, Laura, a lot of the time, these characters, especially Padme, she really tries to do the right thing, but she gets foiled because Palpatine is just being Palpatine,
I think of that with Fives as well. Yeah,
definitely. And no matter what you do, it seems like Palpatine's always one step ahead. He's always manipulating the situation to make Padme or Ahsoka or Fives or whoever it is look bad, make himself look good. So, and then at the end of this, he's like, "Oh, I will reluctantly take control of the banks. Oh no, I don't want to have to take control.
If I have to."
Yeah, but he wants to take control of the banks. I mean, come on.
Yeah. It's interesting to me. The things he does against Ahsoka and Fives are obviously horrendous, but the campaign he goes on specifically against Padme doesn't feel like he wants to keep his secret quiet as much as it feels like he wants to specifically punish Padme. I feel like he's the kind of guy that would be like, so Padme ruined all my plans on Naboo 13 years ago. I'm not forgetting about that. She's also the only person keeping Anakin tethered to the light side. Not forgetting about that either. So I'm just going to make her life as miserable as possible.
And complicate Anakin's too. I mean, he's getting two birds with one stone here, in tempting Anakin, knowing that he's going to have that crazy negative reaction to her having to spend any time even near Clovis.
Yeah, he definitely knows something. At least he knows at least something is up with Padme and Clovis, and he definitely manipulates that in this arc. And yeah, as we will get to, obviously he turns every situation into pushing Anakin closer to the dark side. But to talk about the banking scandal, because that's kind of where this episode kind of kicks off. I think that it's unfortunate for Padme that she is always in this kind of episode, because I don't think the Clone Wars does the best job with these super politics heavy kind of arcs where it's really it can really be kind of vague and just the story can really get bogged down in itself. But I do think that Padme does get some opportunities to shine in this one, so I'm not too frustrated with the way that this one takes shape. But I mean, the scandal of the banks stealing from both sides to prop themselves up, profiteering, it's pretty standard Clone Wars stuff. I don't know. What do you guys think? What does everybody think about the political side of the episode? Because I really wasn't sure what to make of it, what to kind of take away. I didn't find it particularly digestible.
There was this sense for me of there was very Lucas-esque. It was like, so how does this work? No, shut up. It works, okay? Just we're gonna say it works. You don't need to know how it works, but it works.
But we saw the screens with the red blinky, hexagons and arrows. So
that should be enough, right?
And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I know a lot of people complain about, oh, the prequels have too much politics. Oh, the Clone Wars doesn't do a good job with politics. But I think in this instance, it honestly would have done a better job had it gone deeper. Because I feel like here they're just kind of saying, okay, this is the problem. Go deal with it, without really, I don't know, without really kind of adequately letting it flush itself out.
See, and I was kind of surprised that they went as deep as they did, because I think that the thing to keep in perspective is that the show was made for kids, and like you don't want to get kids bogged down in too many political type of thing. But I think the thing that stuck out for me, and it's always when I think about the fact that this show premiered in 2008, and like you talk about, the financial crisis that happened around that time, and how the banks, all of our banks, like just got away with it, and like really no consequences to anybody. And so when you bring in a sort of arc like this that I think is supposed to sort of speak to that a little bit and be a little bit of like a commentary on that, like it's interesting to sort of think about in that real world context, I think. But it's interesting for me as an adult. It wouldn't have been interesting for me as a child in 2014 when this show was airing. Yeah, I wasn't a child in 2014, but for any children who were watching it then.
Yeah, I definitely think if I had watched this in 2014, yeah, I definitely would not have been asking for more. I think I'm kind of a sucker for a lot of the intrigue of the Clone Wars.
You can say it.
But yeah, maybe that wouldn't have.
You can say it.
Peeling back the layers, as Eli thinks I say too much. Getting to the bottom of these mysteries. Boom, the layers of conflict stacking up, getting peeled back, whatever you want to say. But yeah, I do think that for kids, but yeah, I mean, the real world kind of references the implications of this episode. Definitely, I think, I thought they were welcome. They certainly didn't go over my head. And whether it's things that are happening currently or more recently, or in 2008, I definitely like when the Clone Wars isn't afraid to go there, and make some references more to some real world happenings.
See, I actually had another historical parallel to this. Did any of you think Switzerland for Scipio? Because that's where my mind immediately went. Because it's their one goal with Scipio is constantly, this is neutral territory. And that's also what Switzerland does a lot.
Yeah, that definitely came to mind, I think.
Also, like the snowy Rocky Mountains, like they have those in Switzerland. Yeah, what I'm saying, Scipio is Switzerland.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, I looked on, as I often do to collect information and prepare myself. I looked through the StarWars.com watch along, the rewatch guide for this episode. And in the trivia gallery, they actually said, Scipio was inspired by Switzerland, which obviously not surprising. But if we're talking about Scipio for a minute, I just want to gush about the design and the visuals, because one thing I love about the later Clone Wars is the visuals. And this episode, I loved it. This arc, I really like the design of the banks, the elaborate cogs, especially in later episodes, the ticker tape wrapping around all the walls in Aurebesh, the little codes. I thought that was really cool.
It is a really pretty episode to look at. I mean, when you get all of those, like, wide shots of Coruscant and of Scipio, and, the inside of the vault and everything was very cool to see. So I enjoyed that part of it. But in general, I tend to really like a lot of the sort of art direction of some of the later episodes, where just the animation style is a little bit easier on the eyes, I think, too, by the time we get to this point in time. So it was just in general, there was a lot of nice stuff to look at in this arc.
Yeah, it was a really pretty episode, really pretty arc. And I'm a total sucker for the big wide shots when you can kind of see how the frames were painted and everything. I
mean,
just
just
think
that
that's so
Star
cool.
Destroyer in that shot from, I think it was the 3rd episode. Like, that was beautiful. That was vivid.
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I mean, another thing I wanted to bring up, when Anakin arrives, obviously it doesn't take long for Anakin's jealous, possessive side to come out when Clovis is mentioned. He puts duty first, but he hates it when Padmé does the same thing. What do we make of Anakin and Clovis when they meet again? Because I thought that scene was really great when they had their little spat, their confrontation.
Go ahead, Alice. I'll let you start.
Oh, I had forgotten where Clovis came from in the first place. So I could be missing something there. I mean, Anakin's always a little fussy, right? So,
Yeah.
I love jealous Anakin. It's one of my favorite forms of Anakin to show up, because he's so funny when he's angry, and he gets angry so easily. But in this particular situation, I think it's fun to see, just because I think we spent so much time in the movies not getting to really know what their marriage was really like and what their relationship was really like. They spent so much time like separate, I think. And even in the Clone Wars, there's a lot of that too. So getting like these little ins to what their relationship is like is just insightful, I think, for me, for these characters.
It's interesting that you find jealous Anakin funny, Laura. I don't know. I was like, every time Anakin walked on screen, I'm like, oh no, what's he going to do this time? There was that shot that I wanted to mention when Anakin arrives on Scipio. They don't shoot his body above his waist, which was, I have to believe that was an intentional choice. And like, they only do that for villains. They don't do that for heroes. And I like the whole juxtaposition. And then, of course, Anakin, when he walks into the cell, his shadow looks oddly like Vader's. And it's those juxtapositions between Anakin and Vader in this arc that I think makes it so special, that we're seeing Vader come out in Anakin more than we probably ever have before.
Yeah, I love it when they throw in all the little hints of what's to come for Anakin in the Clone Wars. I really like that when they do that.
I love the cool wolf dog thing that the bounty hunter has. It's just a really interesting looking animal. So I love anything that's sort of similar to any kind of dog in Star Wars. I just think that's a fun thing to insert every now and then. And the fact that this very evil, like, alien bounty hunter has a pet is just cute to me.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, I was telling Eli when we were just chatting before he joined that the little snow chase at the end I really liked, because it reminded me of playing Crash Bandicoot.
Nice.
My thing with that chase at the end, which I was talking to Alice about this before you were recording, is my favorite thing is that Embo uses his hat as a skateboard, a snowboard, basically. And what I really wanted from that scene was he pulls out a hologram of Sidious right after he gets away. I really wish that was inside his helmet. So they just completely followed through with the gag and just put it inside his helmet. And they're like, yeah, that he uses this helmet for everything.
Yeah, no, they had a half pipe and snowboarding in this episode. So they're like, yeah, no, we're good. We got enough gimmicks here, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
I love that they weren't afraid to go there and just be like, yeah, sure, Embo, he's snowboarding and he's got a space dog. Yeah, sure, why not? And honestly, that one moment where he gives his dog space dog a little pet on the head after they get away. After seeing what happened to the Massif in episode 1 of Book of Boba Fett, after seeing everything that happens to animals in Star Wars, a lot of animals getting beaten up on sometimes, I feel. that was just a nice moment. I thought it was a real breath of fresh air for me. Yeah, overall, I thought the chase scene was the best part of the episode. Yeah, I thought it just injected some more energy into it when it kind of, I don't know. The banking story was cool, but I felt like it was starting to get a little bit soggy. I don't know.
I do like that they were like, so they were like, Dave Filoni, who do you want as your main villain for this episode? Do you want like Corey Burton or your or like your what's his name, Jim Cummings, who's Hondo or something like that? And he's like, nah, I got this. And
did he do it himself? Is that the voice of Embo?
Yeah, Dave's the voice of Embo. So I just love the primary antagonist for this episode. It's just Dave speaking like 7 lines. Again, it's one of those things where I think I'm gonna describe more of my thoughts on this arc once we talked about all 3 of them. But it was a great start to the episode. The snowboard chase was easily my favorite part, just because of how ridiculous it was and how they just stuck it into a normally just incredibly somber and serious episode.
Overall, I enjoyed it. I thought that this is a fine arc. I'm not really super into like Clovis as a character, so I do particularly enjoy how this arc ends. But he's one of the things that sticks out for me every time he says Padmé's name. He always says Padmé. And I just think that's so annoying. So, also R.I.P. Teckla in this episode.
R.I.P. Teckla.
Yeah, Handmaid did not last too long in this arc. It's too bad.
That is man. Yeah, being one of Padmé's handmaidens, that just. That seems like a rough gig. That seems like a really rough gig.
Yeah, I was about to say it is a 2-woman body count in 3 years. We're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not good. Yeah. I felt like Tecla's death actually was a bit unnecessary. Like, I don't think it advanced a lot of the plot. And I really did like Teckla as a character, but whatever. Jacob, Alyce, your overall thoughts? Whichever one wants.
It was fine. I don't know if this whole arc really grabs me that much, as some other ones do. I like when things are a little more Jedi heavy. But it was definitely cool to see kind of the banking setup and see a little more how that works.
I'm with you with that one. I love Jedi stuff in general, but yeah. Jacob, want to wrap this up before we get on to Rise of Clovis?
Yeah. Overall, not a bad start to the arc. I definitely like this episode, this arc, more than I did watching it for the first time. But yeah, overall a pretty nice episode. I thought did a reasonably good job of, for a kids show as it is, not getting too bogged down. Maybe if it was in a different medium, or if the circumstances were different, they would have gone in depth into the banking intrigue, and I think some political intrigue related to that would for me that would not be unwelcome at some point. But yeah, I thought it did a reasonably good job.
Yeah. If no one else has anything else to say, then we should probably get on to the Rise of Clovis. The episode where an old woman comes up to Clovis at the end and asks who he is, and he says Clovis Skywalker. It's weird for me to make a joke about that because I do genuinely like that moment. But anyway, fortune cookie is jealousy is the path to chaos, and what chaos there is in this episode.
Yeah,
this one's incredibly appropriate. I mean, given what the conversation that Anakin has later with Padmé, where what does he say? I demand that you not speak
as
to
your
Clovis
husband.
Yeah, I'm just like, holy crap! Like, I forget that happens every time I watch this arc, but every time I watch it, I'm just like, the hell did he just say? Did he say that out loud? Like, oh my god.
Yeah, like in between Clovis, Anakin, Palpatine. It seems like Padmé just deals with a lot of sexism in her job, and in this episode especially, with the way Clovis treats her, and the way that the way that Anakin obviously says that. When I heard that, I was like, "Whoa, dude, really?"
Yeah.
But yeah, that definitely shows where Anakin is at, because he is nothing if not jealous in general, and especially in this episode.
Yeah, I also just like that. Padmé runs away from Anakin to Clovis, who also sexually harasses her, and then she's brought before Dooku, who's like, "Hey, all those dreams you got over there in the next episode, all those dreams, they're nothing. Everybody has a price. Your whole lifestyle is nothing." I'm like, can Padmé catch a break?
No,
with
she can't.
men in this arc. Yeah, it's incredible. And it is incredible how ridiculous this whole thing is. Yeah. Let's see.
I mean,
I will say this is a little
Sorry, go
detail.
ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. Go ahead.
Palpatine obviously assigning when he assigns Padme to work closely with Rush. Just another example of exacerbating Anakin's attachment problems and his possessiveness and pushing him closer to the dark side. That's just, to me, that is peak Clone Wars, and that is one of it's one of these many in the Clone Wars blink and you'll miss it moments of that is what it's all about. Of this is what Palpatine is doing to Anakin to try and slowly drive a wedge in between him and the people that he loves and that he cares about, that are kind of keeping him tethered, as Eli, as you said, to the light side as he is wrestling with everything that he is dealing with.
That's the constant manipulation.
Yeah, it's crazy how many strings Palpatine just manages to pull over and over again in this arc. It's also crazy just generally how much Anakin does on his own. That line that will always stick out for me for this episode, which is Anakin deciding, "Hey, I want to write a fortune cookie for myself. A serpent can shed its skin, but it is still a serpent." And
Yeah,
I'm
I feel like that
Anakin,
was a Jedi fortune cookie that was like in their back pocket and they just never found a good use for it. And they're like, I don't know, just have Anakin say it. Like, I thought the same thing. I was just like, that sounds like a Jedi fortune cookie, but good on you, Anakin. That's some wisdom right there.
Yeah. I was going to say the only irony is I feel like it's kind of an anti-fortune cookie because I think the Jedi do believe generally in redemption. And I find it funny that Anakin's talking about how redemption is bullshit when redemption, like, basically he's redeemed and he basically saves the galaxy like 30 years later.
Yeah.
So sure, Anakin, talk to me about how redemption is overrated in 30 years and get back to me about that one.
Yeah. Clovis is going to be a little bit more relatable at that point, I think.
Yeah. Wait, okay. I just realized that one. Okay, cool.
And I mean, once Dooku gets involved with Clovis, that's when you know shit is getting real for this episode, in my opinion. With Dooku, manipulating Clovis, it's amazing how there really is nothing in the Clone Wars, it seems, that is not actually Palpatine just pulling the strings. Like, there is no lengths to which he will not go to ensure that everything falls into place in the Clone Wars. And it's cool to see that and to see the extent to which
he really is driving everything, and it's kind of interesting watching Dooku basically just be the middleman in this episode between him. He's like middle management in this one.
Yeah, I feel really bad for Dooku because Dooku gets the rug pulled under him because he knows about Order 66. He thinks that he's gonna be with Palpatine when it all goes down, and then a little bit too late in Revenge of the Sith, he realizes that he was just a part of the game as well.
Yeah, Dooku is a really weird role in this episode because I feel like he's in servitude of Palpatine more in this arc than in any other arc we've seen so far. It does seem like Sidious is the one running the show here. Yeah, speaking of master and apprentice relationships, there are 3 lines in this episode that pain me every time I listen to them. Something wrong? You tell me. Not that I'm aware. It's Anakin and Obi-Wan's conversation, where they get so close to being honest with each other about their respective love lives, but just don't quite get there. It's so annoying.
I mean, I don't know what you all think, but to me, that scene really seemed like Obi-Wan was trying to find a way to kind of, on the down low, say to Anakin a little bit, look, I know there's something up, and whatever's going on, you have to figure it out. Like maybe he knows that that Anakin and Padme are more than just friends. I don't know. That's how it came off to me, but I'm curious to hear what other people would have to say about that.
I love this scene so much, and I am going to the fact that he brings up Satine by name is just what seals the deal for me for this scene. I just love that he's just like my dude, come on, I've been through this. Like, it's not like we're not allowed to have these feelings. Like, we just have to like figure out how to cope with them. It's natural. And the fact that Anakin still, like, that's the person that he's like closest with in this world, or at least in the Order, and like that he still cannot be open with him. And this is the part where I'm going to shoehorn in something about the High Republic because I just have to. But it was always, watching this episode with that context, it was really interesting to kind of think about how Anakin like compares to a character like Elzar Mann. And I'm not going to spoil anything for any of the High Republic stuff, but like Anakin just has no one to confide in the Order, and like no one to understand who's like what he's going through. And Elzar he's got Avar and he's got Stellan and he's got Orla to like help him face his darkness and like find coping mechanisms. And the fact that like Anakin can't even confide in Obi-Wan of all people, it just is like goes to sort of further emphasize like how isolated he really is in his situation.
Yeah, no, it's sad. It's really sad for him.
And I think back to like,
sorry, go ahead.
I think back to like Ahsoka also in the Zygerian arc, where Obi-Wan's just like, yeah, Anakin has a little bit of a thing about slavery because, you know, he was formerly enslaved. Just don't do anything about it. Just let him be. And I'm
don't bring it up. He doesn't like to talk about it. Don't bring it up.
Yeah, it's like, no, don't do that. Just, okay, communicate with each other. Yeah. Actually, there was a line that I loved. This is just a weird Easter egg that I noticed. It sounds like when Padmé and Clovis are talking about the Munes, it sounds like Munes are good people. Most Munes are. And to that, Clovis, I say, I got a bridge to sell you about this guy named Darth Plagueis the Wise. Have you ever heard of him? He's, you know, he used the Force to influence midichlorians to create life. You know, maybe you heard of him.
Plagueis is to Munes as Palpatine is to humans. We're not all bad. Just most of us are bad, you know?
That's true. No, I like you, Laura, I will never miss a chance to shoehorn the tragedy of Darth Plagueis. Let's see. I also liked in the scene with Anakin and Obi-Wan how Anakin was constantly just like fixing things and playing with his ships. Like there's that thing where Anakin goes, I understand my responsibilities, and he puts like a model fighter down on his table or something, and I'm like
father like son.
Yeah, but it's also like it's almost like he knows how to be a general better than he knows how to be a husband.
I also just thought he was like actually fixing something important. Like I thought he was like working on some kind of machinery. Like I didn't realize he was like playing with a toy until he put it up. I was like, oh my god, dude. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember there was like some background detail I heard about, like, you know, the Jedi frown upon Anakin's constantly tinkering with ships, but Anakin defends it as a practice of moving meditation. I'm like, okay, what does the Jedi Order like about Anakin?
Literally nothing. Mace Windu, if he was here, he'd answer nothing.
Yeah. Citizen.
His luscious locks of hair.
There it is. That's it.
That's it. And the fact that he could maybe probably not be the chosen one.
No, that's probably another reason that he hates him, because like Windu's bald, so he's just like probably jealous that Anakin has that lush hair.
Yeah, I know. He's just like,
Yeah, and his
jealousy leads to chaos,
It
and
does.
I will cause chaos if.
and I would like to point out that Windu's contempt for Anakin only increases throughout the Clone Wars, and
And his hair
finally to
grows
Revenge of
long.
the Sith, as his hair grows longer and more luscious over time.
So
It
what we're
just-
saying is, Windu's contempt is symbolized by Anakin's hair.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
It drives
that is what we're
everything.
saying. Yes, this is very very deep. This is the deep, hard-hitting, high-level Star Wars analysis you know and love, everyone.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Anything either of you, Laura and Alyce, have for this episode?
So my favorite part was when they were having dinner, and I'm like, Padme looks on point. Her hair's awesome. Her dress is awesome. You know, she's pouring the wine. I'm like, you go, girl. This is great. But then she starts serving the food, and it's just like 2 tomato slices. It doesn't even touch the space turkey legs. And I was like, what? Those look delicious. Come on.
Yeah.
Maybe she's a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
maybe it
don't-
was like there was that thing they were describing in the episode where, like, in that dinner conversation where they were trying to save refugees on a planet, I believe, and they're like, we didn't eat or sleep or drink, and maybe Padme is like, you know, that worked pretty well. Let's replicate that.
Yeah. I mean, Alice, I thought you brought up a good point. I think the Clone Wars does tend to suffer from disappointing food syndrome. You know, this is a fantasy galaxy where anything can happen, and the food is always just it looks really underwhelming. It does not look as fanciful or nearly as out there as you would expect. And we see in what is it, season 2, the Geonosis arc, Ahsoka and Barriss literally sit down in the mess hall and eat plates of little gray squares. Like they have some serious problems. I don't know if, man, like, do the clone troopers, like, they have their ration sticks, like, do they just have scurvy? Do they get vitamin C deficiency? Like, what is going on there? Like,
I need to know the chemical makeup of these rations. I need to know if there's
chemical
vitamin C in them, and if there's not, I also am curious if scurvy is just widespread among the troops. I don't know.
And like, you know, you think there's calcium in there, because if they're not, like, their bones would just be somewhat so brittle and they'd break in battle. If there's not calcium in there, there's gonna be hell to pay.
yeah, I hope those clones. I hope they drink their blue milk or something. I don't know.
They're getting nutrition somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It's funny that you brought up the food. I didn't even notice the food in that scene, because all I could pay attention to is the fact that Padme was just like sort of put off by Clovis trying to make a move on her, and her response to that is to stand up, bend over, and basically lean her ass right in his face while she's helping herself to food. I'm like, girl, like, come on, like you're just asking for it and being a tease. So like,
Yeah.
this is ridiculous.
That was
And
definitely
she
a
was
misstep
fixing
on
his
her part.
plate too,
Yeah.
with
Like,
like
he
the 2
get it
tomato
himself.
slices and a Kraft cheese.
And I'm like, if you don't want them to think you're together, like, stop. When Clovis is appointed the head of the banks, I think it was at the end of this one or the beginning of next one, like, they look like they're in love the entire time. I'm like, if you don't want to look like you're in love, stop looking like you're in love.
Avert your eyes.
Yeah, no. I almost said Palpatine. Palpatine and Clovis. Anyone? I wouldn't mind that. That would be an interesting ship, actually. I think that has some. That would have some interesting ramifications and some
I should
interesting
be.
potential, I think. But
Okay, you put that image in my head, Jake.
Padme does not do a very good job of kind of dissuading Clovis of the notion that she's there for more than just politics. But she's, I mean, to be fair to her, she's in a tough spot. Obviously, she doesn't want people finding out about her and Anakin. And then
And Clovis can't say no.
she's put but she's put in this tough spot where she also wants. Does she want this deal, her deal with Clovis, finding out what's really going on in the banks? Does she want that bad enough that she's willing to give him romantic attention and lead him on to get what she wants?
I mean, I think that's one of her strengths in this when it comes to Clovis, is that she can really weaponize that in a way that I think is sort of fun to watch her kind of put that to use, and use it as a strength. I think it's just a fun way to sort of just to kind of take her character in that direction. It just makes her more interesting as a character to me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the big problem for her again is, how would Anakin react to that? And I think it becomes an interesting dilemma. Obviously, Anakin, he's doing way too much in this episode. He is way too possessive, but it still is an interesting question, I think, of when you're a power couple like Anakin and Padmé, who are both, obviously constantly making huge sacrifices to do what they do for the Jedi and the Republic. Where do you draw that line? Does romancing someone else? And I should point out, like, in Padmé's defense, like, Anakin, when he is totally romancing the Queen of Zygeria in the Zygeria arc in season 4. So it's not exactly like he's never been in such a situation. I don't know.
Oh yeah, there are definitely moments where he like shows contempt for politicians besides Padmé, but like he does the same thing where he uses his charm as a weapon, and that's very much a politician move. So yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, because she definitely does that in this episode, and we don't ever get to see her act jealous towards Anakin when he's hitting on a Catwoman.
Yeah. Though I will say, I'm not sure she knew that. That's the other advantage of him being like so off-world, is she probably doesn't know that.
Oh yeah, would he ever tell her? No, he would not bring that up. No.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, the more I think about it.
And now I'm just having a whole new world in my head because of the scene where the Queen of Zygeria and Anakin are flying, and she puts her head on his shoulder, and you could swear Disney music was playing.
There's a lot of shipping action happening in this conversation.
Apparently.
Apparently. But yeah, Anakin is, maybe he's not being very fair. Maybe he he really obviously he is being very possessive. But I think that's one of his hallmarks as a character, is that when he is attached to people, and we've seen this before with Padmé earlier in the Clone Wars. We see it a lot with Ahsoka. When he gets really attached, there comes a certain point when he no longer wants what is best for the bigger picture. He wants, more than anything, what will give him a sense of security, and a sense that he is doing a good job at protecting the people he loves, namely Ahsoka and Padmé.
Yeah, it's pretty easy for him to lose focus.
Yeah, and it's not hard to see why, with his experience with his mom. And I think, and coming up, Anakin, incredibly powerful, gifted, talented Jedi who has had some traumatic experiences. It's not hard to see how he's almost convinced himself people are only safe if they're with me, or if they're doing something that I've sanctioned and that I've determined is safe, which obviously is I think that's pretty unhealthy for him, and that kind of drives his attachments and his inability ultimately what leads to his downfall is his inability to control his attachments, as a Jedi kind of needs to in order to kind of live an extreme life.
There was a line that references that I was just about to bring up. When Padmé says, "I don't know who's in there sometimes," and I instantly saw Vader like almost engulf, and like in my own mind, Vader engulf Anakin, because like it's this weird metaphor where you have like, you know, Vader is obviously not there, but it does feel like Anakin's soul is half Vader and half Anakin at pretty much all time. And it's just whoever decides to come out at the moment.
Yeah, and the later we get into these seasons in the Clone Wars, I think the more you see it. But yeah, it definitely comes out in season 6 and definitely in this episode towards the end.
Yeah, it's scary. There's also that line which is so weird that I just want to bring up. When Padme goes, "Both of you stop this," and Anakin says, "You don't have a say in this." I'm like,
yeah, she does. Sure, she does. Yeah,
the only person who should have a say in this.
Yeah, she's not the one who has decided to beat the crap out of Clovis.
No, fight me like a man without your Jedi tricks.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's something to be said for the scene after Clovis gets beat up. You know, it gets pretty raw in between Padme and Anakin, and that's the one thing that I really think is special, or one of the things I think is really special about these episodes is, Laura, as you said, the glimpse into Padme and Anakin's marriage that we don't really get in the prequels. I think that's quite welcome.
I will say, there was this interesting thing before we wrap up the episode. There was this great part of the story where they split, where Anakin and Padme split. And I feel like it's a shocking move for the story, but it really works for me in the story because of the situations that both characters are in. And if they didn't reconcile I wish their reconciliation had been a little messier, frankly. Because it just felt like, so we love each other again now.
Yeah, to me it seemed, yeah. I thought it was out of character how quickly Padme kind of was willing to reconcile with Anakin, and the fact that she was apologizing when I felt it was really Anakin who was just not being a good husband, not being compassionate or patient or understanding with the situation. But that's just my opinion, though. So, you know,
there was this theory that I saw online. I don't know if any of the three of you have saw this theory that Luke and Leia were conceived shortly after the events of this arc.
Oh, I've not given it any thought. I don't know.
Yeah, what spurs that theory? I don't really.
Basically, somebody charting out the canon timeline and realizing that this was probably around 9 months from when Revenge of the Sith was, which is weird, keeping that context in mind. Yeah. Do we want to get on to Crisis at the Heart?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do. Our fortune cookie is: deceit is the weapon of greed. It's a weird one. It's a really strange one.
It feels a little bit like a truism that is not necessarily super unique to this episode. But yeah, I mean, obviously the lengths that Clovis is willing to go, even though he has noble intentions, also, you know, it's impossible to not imagine that he also is thinking about himself and his own ambitions and everything that he's doing. But I mean, in the announcer reel for this episode, I thought it was super unfair of them to say that Padme is the one throwing her and Anakin's relationship into peril. I can't remember exactly what she says. I can't remember exactly what the announcer voice says. It's like, oh, she does something, throwing their relationship into peril. I think it's more Anakin personally. I feel like Anakin is the one who's, he's obviously very jealous, very quick to anger.
Yeah, whoever wrote that had a bias, I think, against her
Yes.
for some reason. It's like he definitely was the one who owed her an apology, and like she honestly, I think, was trying to do the mature thing by being like, you know what, like, let's give each other a little bit of space here. I think that might be healthy for us. Like, why don't you go do your thing? I'll do my thing for a while, and that once we maybe come back together again, maybe we'll have cooled off. And I think that that's kind of the main goal here for a little bit. But so she tried, I think, but. What can you do?
Especially when Palpatine's pulling the strings, and I was thinking about the very, like, almost the Arthurian picture of where Anakin, of how Palpatine manipulates this thing, where Anakin's like the knight in shining armor going to rescue the damsel in distress from the evil man who wants to steal her away, and how Anakin gets painted as, like, the hero, who will do anything to, he's almost like the Superman in the universe. That definitely occurred to me. Yeah. Also, was anybody reminded of when Commander Thorne sacrificed himself on Scipio? Did anybody else think of the 2D Clone Wars microseries, the Tartakovsky microseries, where a clone does a mini version of the same thing?
I've only seen that once, so no.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
I think I've only seen. I'm not sure. I see that GIF all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely feels like a throwback to the early seasons of the Clone Wars, when we just get a lot of clone and droid battle action, and also definitely to the Tartakovsky Clone Wars, where, you just have clones going out, just kicking ass and taking names like nobody's business. So I definitely see where you're coming from. But yeah, R.I.P. Thorne.
R.I.P. Arm.
Pretty epic last stand. But I mean, I think the political intrigue kind of picks up in this episode. Dooku's plan to manipulate Clovis, yada yada. Time to make Clovis look like a powerful separatist. I thought that was a great line. But I was surprised thinking about having rewatched a lot of the Clone Wars at this point. This is quite a risk for Palpatine, letting Dooku make Clovis betray the Republic when he put his stamp of approval on Clovis to get him into power in the first place. It still serves his bigger plan, but it seems like quite a risk for Palpatine, who usually tries to operate more on making himself look good and kind of gaining popularity in order to cover for his power grabs.
I think it could partly be, in a sense, his way to get more power over it. If he had said, okay, I'm just going to handle this first, that's one thing. But if someone takes it over, kind of screws with it, it's like, oh, it's such a risk, so I have to have full, total, complete control over it now. It kind of gives them a little more wiggle room.
Yeah, that's definitely the name of Palpatine's game. When he sets off, he orchestrates setting off a bomb in the Coruscant power grid in an earlier Clone Wars season to stop a vote that would potentially not let him borrow more money to make more clone troopers. So he's definitely no stranger to doing things like that. So yeah, that's a good point. I think that he definitely is willing to kind of temporarily loosen his grasp in order to ultimately squeeze down further. And another side effect of this, I don't know if this is something that he had planned. This also is another example of him manipulating Anakin, where he ultimately draws Anakin closer to him, because at the end of the previous episode, he was like, oh, privately, he was like, oh, Anakin, you're totally right. Privately, I don't trust Clovis. And now, what do you know? Clovis has betrayed the Republic and raised the tax and raised the
Interest rates.
The interest rates. Thank you. Raised the interest rates. Is so I think it's another example of Palpatine. Basically, he's basically saying to Anakin, "Oh, Anakin, no one understands you. No one takes you seriously. No one understands how smart you are, except for me." And that's kind of what he does over and over again in the Clone Wars, and it's masterful how he manipulates.
That's the way of the dark side.
It's masterful how he manipulates Anakin to where Anakin feels, and to some extent it is real, but yeah, Anakin ultimately, part of his downfall is he just feels more valued by Palpatine than by hardly anyone else, I should say.
It's like 7 whole seasons of grooming.
Yeah,
and like 2 movies. It's terrifying. I will say, Laura, you may mention this earlier. I want to jump into the end of the episode when Rush Clovis kills himself.
But does he though?
I mean, he lets go of the hand and like drops down, and yeah, it's a really weird thing because he was talking to Padmé earlier in the scene. And he was talking about his legacy. He was talking about how people will see him. And apparently people will now see him as dead. So that's an interesting way of going about that.
I mean, it's Star Wars. I think no one's ever really gone. That's what we've learned over the past few years of Star Wars content.
Do you think Clovis is going to show up in the Book of Boba Fett?
I was about to say, do you think we're going to get Robo-Legs Clovis?
At this point, that wouldn't be the most surprising thing.
Can't put it past him.
I would not. Yeah, I mean, look, Chrysanthemum's here. Anything could happen. Maybe
Chrysanthemum's not dead though.
Yeah, maybe it's time. Good point, but still, maybe it's time for a Rush Clovis comeback. I think I could probably. I don't know. There's got to be some niche pocket of Star Wars fandom out there who are really into Rush Clovis. That's got to be a thing.
Anakin would like come back from the dead just to like kill him again. I swear to God, I don't think I have always said this. This has always been my theory about this. Rush Clovis was holding on to Anakin's like mechanical arm. Anakin could have held him. He could have used the Force to hold up both of them. He literally was just like, "Oh no, I can't hold you," and then he lets himself go. But I'm like, I will never believe that Anakin couldn't have held them and brought them both over. It's just that will always be my theory for this particular end of this arc.
Yeah. A chuckle I got is when Anakin was like, "Padmé, can you climb?" And she's like, "I'm trying." And I was like, "How is she supposed to climb? Like, what is she
climb? What exactly?"
And then just nothing happens. Yeah.
She's got no core strength. What's she supposed to do?
Yeah, she's like
relatable.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me that Clovis, like, there's often a sense with him in this arc that he tries to make himself look as noble as possible without actually doing anything noble. Like, he lets go of the hand because he knows there's something going on between Padmé and Anakin, but he doesn't know what. And he fights the guy an episode earlier, and then in the episode before that, he's like, he makes up a story for no apparent reason as to why he's beat up.
I mean, I think for that one, I think he realizes that it would not be in his best interest or in anyone's best interest for a massive investigation to happen as they're trying to discreetly figure out what the heck is going on with these banks.
It would have been a huge distraction. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I do wonder though if maybe like we saw him voice his sort of concerns about like what is this legacy that I'm going to leave behind. And I think at that point, while he's like hanging on for dear life, like kind of realizes like, oh yeah, I've really become the villain in the history here, and this doesn't look good for me. Like, I'll just do this one last thing and just like off myself so that hopefully the two of them can survive, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
And it's sad. That part it's sad to me because I think at the end of the second episode, kind of when Clovis explains his story and explains why he's so passionate about saving these banks and why he really believes in the power of a neutral bank system. Like I kind of gained some sympathy for him. Like he clearly is trying to do the right thing, and I think ultimately his downfall, like many characters, is that he tried to do the right thing, and he to do that he ultimately was forced to do some bad things, accept help from some untrustworthy people, and that came back to bite him in the butt in the end.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's hard for me to feel bad for Clovis because of how he treats Padmé. But like, he was manipulated and deceived. It's a very complicated story with Rush Clovis.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely a complicated character. Like, on the one hand, obviously he betrayed Padmé before, even if he wasn't totally for it. He went along with it to further his own ambitions in Senate spy, and he definitely behaves like a bit of a slob towards Padmé. But I don't know. I can't help but have more sympathy for him after seeing that he at least kind of does have good intentions, even if he doesn't really know how to go about executing those in the best way.
Yeah, we should probably get to some of our questions, Jacob. They're on the document. We got 5 questions for the both of you. Just some fun little Star Wars things that we're gonna ask both of you about. So in any order, favorite Star Wars character for the both of you?
Kenobi.
Mine changes a lot. Right now, it's Avar Kriss.
Oh, nice pick.
Either what is your movie ranking of the Star Wars movies, or just like your top 5,
or top 3 if you want,
or whatever.
Top 3: Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One.
Interesting.
I'm always Rogue One, Last Jedi, and then from there, everything kind of starts to shift around for me, I think. Maybe Force Awakens would probably be number 3.
Nice.
By the way, I just want to point out, I got the Last Jedi shirt here.
Hey.
Let's see. Next question. Favorite non-movie Star Wars media that people are missing out on?
Alyce, any ideas?
Non-movie Star Wars media. I would say Jedi Fallen Order.
Everything the High Republic.
Yeah,
Very
I'm
good
definitely
choice.
behind on my High Republic reading myself, so I've got some catch-up work to do on that, unfortunately. But I've heard a lot of good things about them.
Yeah, I switched mine. Books did not cross my mind for some reason. I'll go High Republic as well.
What is both of your favorite Star Wars background character?
Oh, God. See, I can't remember if he actually ended up getting cut from the movie completely or if we do still see him. It's the character in The Last Jedi that has, like, the one eye. He's, like, a Cyclops, like, little naked guy. He's in the visual dictionary, but I don't think that he actually I think he ended up on the cutting room floor. Kedpin Shoklop is his name.
That's an incredible name.
It is.
Yeah, he's in the Canto Bight book thing, right?
Yes, that's right. So he's still canon, but I really don't think he made it to the movie now that I think about it.
Oh man, I don't know if I have one. I always have a hard time with that question. There's got to be someone doing something just like goofy that makes me laugh, but I don't know.
That's fine. The final one. I'm gonna put up a character on the screen. Just tell me how the both of you pronounce her name. That's all it is. Let's see. I'm gonna get this up. Can the both of you see this?
Yes.
Okay, how do you pronounce this character's name?
Zam Wessel.
Yeah,
cool.
That's what I would go with. Is there a different pronunciation people go with?
Yes. So our mutual friend Devore from Allergy to the Force said he always thought it was Zamwizel. And so we like to give him shit about it.
Fair enough.
So no, so we are currently so Team Wessel is currently like
We got to be like
13-2.
So wait. Yeah. So the Wazels are still the Wazel team is still they're still hanging in there. They're still hanging in there. So we'll see.
We hope. Anyway, so where can we find the both of you, Force Toast, and everything the both of you do?
Well, you can find Alyce on Twitter at Slaya All Day is her handle. Our show is at Force Toast Pod, and my handle is #Laura. Our show comes out on Tuesdays every couple of weeks, and it's called Force Toast Star Wars Happy Hour. You can find it on all major podcast platforms. And I do a show with John Roca on his channel called The Jedi Way, and I jump in every once in a while with the Geek Buddies to talk about Star Wars stuff on his channel too. So you can find me over there.
By the way, Jedi Way and Force Toast both are phenomenal. Both these days, I'm a regular listener of both. So
thank you.
Yeah,
no problem.
And congrats on 2 years.
Thank you so much. It's been a crazy journey. Thanks so much to both of you for coming on again. You can find us on Twitter at In a Galaxy Pod, Instagram at Star Wars in a Galaxy. Listen on Spotify, Anchor, and Breaker, and Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen to your podcasts, we will be there. You can email us at swinagalaxy@gmail.com with all your questions and hot takes and all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much to Alyce and Laura again for joining us for this episode. Next week, Jacob and I are going to be getting into occult and some really weird stuff with the Disappeared arc. The Disappeared parts 1 and 2. And until then, may the Force be with you always.